Hey, coaches, welcome to another Football Scoop online clinic presentation. Today we've got a former D3 Football Scoop Coordinator of the Year finalist, Grant Caserta. He's joining us. He's going to talk some creating a prescriptive tackling plan. So, Coach Caserta, the floor is yours, man.
All right. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. And thanks for you guys for having me. First of all, before I get started, I just want to put out a little note there. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is based off of the USA Football tackling system with the 5 fights that Richie Gray and Andy Ryland and those guys created. So I want to give those guys credit, Vinny DiGaetano and all those guys that do that. They have a whole big group of them, and I've been following those guys, and this is kind of the basis of what I'm going to talk about today. So most of this is stuff that was not created by me or by any means, but we've added a couple things to it, and I think it can be a pretty useful way to train your guys to tackle and also to evaluate the tackle. I think it's a really important thing not to just track whether you made or missed the tackle, but why and what happened during the tackle. What can you do better? I think that was a big thing some of those guys were saying, is that you can make the tackle, but it might not be an effective tackle. So we're always looking to improve, with knockbacks and limiting yards after contact and things like this. And I think this system gives you a chance to evaluate that and do that. So we'll get going here. So what I'm going to go over today, the 5 fights, what each element is, and then how we teach that. So we're going to break it down into track, prepare, connect, accelerate, and finish, which I'll go over. And we'll talk about how we teach those things and the coaching points that we give on each one of them, and just get really detailed in that. After that, we'll talk about the 5 tackling situations that we talk about. So we're going to train not only the elements of the tackle, but the different situations that guys are going to find themselves in, and the most common situations they'll find themselves in based on their position. And then towards the end, we'll do our tackling grading system. I'll show you guys how we do that, how we track the 5 fights, and then we find areas that we need improvement on. And then the last part will be prescriptive drilling. So I've got a couple examples of what I do with the linebackers, and a few of those drills that can help some problem areas. So we'll get going here. Just a couple quick stats on us last year. We led the country in sacks and tackles for loss, and we were top 20 in rushing defense, 3rd and 4th down defense. So we had a pretty good year this year, but always working to improve. So 5 fights overview, like I said: track, prepare, connect, accelerate, and finish. And I'll get into each one of those in a lot of detail here. So the first part is tracking, and this is your path to the ball in most simple terms. And it's the most important skill out of all the skills that we're going to talk about, because if you don't track the ball properly, then you're not going to be able to make the tackle most of the time. So tracking is one that we're going to spend a ton of time on. I really like it too, because it's one, if we were in spring ball right now in Division III, we're not allowed to wear pads. So tracking drills are great. They're great in the off season for the high school guys that can do summer stuff and they don't want to tackle, or they're not able to tackle. You can always work on this stuff, and this is stuff that guys can work on their own outside of practice time too. So the big coaching point that we talk about are the angle to the ball, the approach to the ball carrier, and our leverage. The leverage is going to be the big key there when we're tracking. So I've got a few clips that can demonstrate what I'm going to talk about here, and then I'll give some coaching points as we go. So I'll highlight each guy that we're looking at here. So on this first play here, it's going to be an outside run, and we're going to track that ball from inside out. So as we're coming here, number 5's tracking the inside hip of 17, the ball carrier, because he's inside out on him. So we're doing a nice job here staying inside out. As we're coming from the inside, we don't want to get on the other side of this guy and let him cut back on us. We're going to track that near hip, stay on his inside, and we're going to contact him ideally with our right shoulder and our right leg up here. We're a head behind team, in line with the rugby tackling stuff with the Seahawks that they've done. So that's what we're going to teach based on, day one stuff. Obviously it doesn't always happen that way, but that's how we'd like to do it. We can get our head out of there. It makes it harder to cut back on you when your head is behind the ball carrier. So that's one of the key points on the track there. So coming inside out here, linebacker does a really good job. Okay, now we're looking at player here. So he's coming from the outside in. So he's going to try to keep that ball on his inside shoulder, just the same way that the inside linebacker was trying to keep that ball on essentially his outside shoulder as he's running to the sideline. So as our DB makes the receiver miss here, he's working to get back into leverage. So he's going to work back to get this way because he knows that we're running from this direction from the inside out, and we want this thing to run up right into the vise there, right in between. You get a pretty good shot of it here on the tight shot. So you'll see the ball pop out to the perimeter, and he's going to work to keep this ball carrier on his inside shoulder. So right here, what we do not want to have happen is this ball carrier get outside of us because we're the force player. So he's got to get back to the outside, and he does a nice job doing that. Another one here. So this play happens down the field. So giving you a couple different examples. This is going to be a completion here to the tight end. And then we're going to highlight this guy right here down the field. So he's positioned outside in on the ball now. So he needs to keep that ball on his inside shoulder as he's tracking. So as he comes up to make a tackle, he's got to ensure that that thing does not pop to the outside because that's his leverage. He's got to protect his leverage. So you can see he does a really nice job here adjusting his course to be sure that that guy does not go outside. He can go inside and we'll get in on the tackle, but he cannot go outside. He's got to protect his leverage. The coaching point that we give these guys is do not let the ball cross your nose. Don't let the ball cross your nose. Keep the ball on your inside shoulder or your near shoulder. Okay, same type of deal here with the corner. So we're working to get back into leverage. So the receiver here starts to threaten our leverage. You can see the corner at this point, he makes his break, but he's pretty close to even. So he's going to work on an angle to get outside of that guy. So that way he can get to his outside. So you can see he ends up on the outside of the ball carrier and makes a nice tackle there on 3rd and 1. So when we're talking about tracking, leverage is the most important thing. We've got to keep our leverage. Okay, so same thing here. Again, just talking about different positions, coming down through. Move this out of the way. So he's coming down outside in. He's got to keep that ball on his inside shoulder. This is going to, no matter what your leverage is, you're going to keep it. So if we're talking about a free safety who's in the middle of the field and the ball's popping out here, he's going to stay inside out to the ball. If we're an outside in player, we're going to stay outside into the ball. Everything comes to a funnel. Everything comes to a vise. That way we can use our teammates or use the sideline to our advantage. No, not him. Okay, so now we're in a scramble situation. So the linebacker's taking his drop. You can see here, and we'll talk about this footwork that he uses right here. We call this a swoop, where we're going to close the space, and then as we get close, we're going to put our near foot on a stagger closer to the quarterback in this case, and our back foot is back a little bit, and we're going to close width and depth as we come into him. So he comes to balance here. He's got that near foot up. So that way when we hit this guy, we've got our left shoulder and our left foot collisioning him, contacting him, so we have maximum power here. But the key is here, you can see it better from the wide shot. If we were to let this guy across our nose, there's really nobody there. So you can see here, if we force it in pretty good shape, if this guy crosses our face, now it turns into a first down. It's a 10-yard gain instead of a 2-yard gain or whatever it was. So this is a good view at what leverage can do for you when it works properly. Okay, another one here. Linebacker covering the running back out of the backfield. So he's going to be an inside-out player. So he's got to make sure he keeps that guy on his inside shoulder. Now, like I said, there's different elements to the tackle. This wasn't a great tackle by any means, but he tracked the ball well. He didn't prepare or connect very well. but he got the man down because he had a good track. So right here, we get to the ball. You can see the corner or the DB is working to get back to outside leverage on this guy. The linebacker's running inside out. If either of these guys lose their leverage, you're probably talking about a touchdown or a big gain. So that's why I spend a lot of time on tracking. It's vitally important that you track well, because that's when you make the tackle and you eliminate the big yards after catch or yards after contact that can be killer. Okay, a couple practice examples here. Now, the linebackers walked up on the line of scrimmage. We're just going to make sure that this ball does not get back to our outside. We're going to kind of overplay this thing so that he's got to cut up. That's where we want him to go. That's where we got bodies. So it's really making sure that we keep that guy from crossing our nose. You can see here he still does a good job of contacting him. Right foot, right shoulder, which is the near foot. Okay. All right, second one now, preparing. So preparing, we're talking about the body position right before we make the contact. So we're going to go over connection next, but the prepare part is one that I personally kind of undervalued. I thought, body position right before you make contact, that's not really a big deal, but it is a big deal. It's very important in terms of how you're going to finish the tackle. A lot of it's informed by how you enter the tackle. So getting into the proper body position is crucial. And I'm going to go over a few of the tackling situations, which we'll go into more detail here. But the type of the tackle is going to tell you what kind of technique you need to use. So we'll hop into these here. This is going to be a frontal tackle. So frontal, we're talking about this guy's running straight at me. I need to get both of my feet square, and I'm going to come off both feet to make the tackle. I'm going to shoot off both legs. I'm going to shoot both arms. It's not as much a same shoulder, same leg deal as much as it is we're squaring this guy up. So we'll watch it from here, and then you can see it from the tight pretty well. So this ball gets swung out here. Now this safety right here, he's got himself in a frontal tackle situation. He's not able to really pick a side. He's just shimmying his feet. He's chopping his feet, and he's trying to close that distance. So you can see his base get wide, and you can see him chop the feet. He's still going to go same foot, same shoulder in a way, but he's kind of letting that guy dictate which way he wants to go. We're staying squared up with him. We got 2 feet in the ground. We're making the tackle. Okay, now here's an example of an angle tackle. So we describe an angle tackle as the ball carrier is running away from us to the sideline. So at this point right here, he's running away from us to the sideline. We're going to run right through his shoulder and force him to continue on his path to the outside. We'll go over that a little bit more detail in just a minute. Here's what we call a vice tackle. So vice tackle, we're talking about the ball carrier's cutting up the field towards the middle of the field away from your leverage, and you're coming outside in. So the last one was an angle tackle from the inside, and this one's a vice tackle coming from the outside. So those are just the terms that we use. So it's the same in terms of the collision that we're going to use. We're going to go same foot, same shoulder, and we're going to run right through the side of his body there. I don't know, my internet's unstable. But a vice tackle is coming from outside in. Okay, the next one's going to be a roll tackle. So sometimes we're going to find ourselves in a situation where either one, the guy is bigger than us, we're not going to be able to run through him very well, or we're not in a position where we can get our shoulder on his thigh board. We're going to have to go low and roll him up because of where he's at or the size disadvantage. So this is going to be a tackle that our DBs use quite a lot. Now in this one here, good roll tackle, but the first thing you'll notice is he lost his leverage. So the ball crossed his nose, which is a big no-no, but he finishes the play while using a roll tackle. So at this point right here, he doesn't really have an opportunity. He sees the receiver coming in to crack block him. So he doesn't really have a chance to redirect and go make an angle tackle. He's got to make the roll tackle. So he's going to go low. Once we get to this point right here, we teach these guys to end up on top. So the term USA football uses is torque and getting 2 hips in the ground. So right now he's got 1 hip in the ground, and now he's got the second hip in the ground. So he does it kind of slowly there, but we want to get speed on that to get lots of revolution speed when we're rolling that guy up right here. So we want to end up on top of him. That ensures that we've got those legs, we've got them wrapped up, and we finish the thing. Now this is a run-through tackle. Run-through is, we describe that as the guy has no way of making a move. So a lot of times it's on a check down, on a hitch, on something where the guy has no way to evade you. So we're not going to break down. We're not going to swoop in. We're not going to shimmy in there. We're just going to power plant and run through. So here the corner, this guy's got no chance to make a move. We're just going to continue running right through this guy. We don't need to worry about angle tackling him. We're just going to run right through with speed. Okay, now the third one here is connection. So that's the initial contact with the ball carrier. So a few of the keys are their clamp. We're talking about claws up. So we're getting our hands in there and we're getting as tight as we can. Arrowhead is a term they use where we're going to compress the air out of the guy with our head. So we're going to put our head into the ball carrier to eliminate wiggle room. We're going to be as tight as we can to that guy. And then the last one is strike point accuracy. So strike point being a low tackle, a mid tackle, or a high tackle, you know, around the midsection. So those are some of the keys there. One of the things that we like to say is when guys hit the ground, it should be one mass of bodies coming to the ground together. You know, you don't have a good connection when you make a tackle and the ball carrier falls and then you fall on top of him, or you fall and then he trips over you. That's not a good connection. We want it to be so much connection there, so tightly squeezed in that when we go to the ground, it's one mass. First one here is just a really good example out of our safety here. Coming across, and you can see here, so he's first, good track. He gets his near foot, near shoulder. He's got his head off to the side. But what I really like is he grabs on, and there's some space there, but he finishes the thing. He latches onto that guy and finishes it. So we want to compress that space. Don't let there be any area for him to get out of there. Okay, another one here on a screen. This is kind of what I was talking about with that arrowhead. So we make the initial contact. Now he's going to fight to get his head down into that guy's side and ride him all the way to the ground. We don't. Okay, this one, we got the corner coming in from the side here. So the ball's completed, but you can see we're going as one mass to the ground. A lot of times you'll see, you know, when they get to this point right here, some guys will put their hand down on the ground to catch themselves, or, you know, they'll roll off the tackle. What we want to do is make sure all the way to the ground we've got that guy tightly squeezed, because you never know if he puts his hand down on the ground as a kickstand and he stays up and we let go. Sometimes you see that as, you know, turn into a big play because we missed the tackle. So this is a good example here by the corner of staying with that guy all the way to the ground, limiting the yards after the catch. They made the completion, but he gets nothing after the catch. That's key. Now this one's a good example of an engaged tackle. So we talk about this a lot with the linebackers, the DBs out on the perimeter, and obviously the D linemen too. So watching the defensive end right here, he's going to lock out the lineman, get into his gap, and then when he makes contact, he's still engaged with the lineman. So he's still got that one arm on him. This is going to end up being a one-arm tackle, and we'll go through this at the end with the linebackers. We run this in a drill, but this is an important part of the connection. Sometimes you're not going to have both hands, especially with the D-line. So you got to make a good connection, and then you got to try to fight to get that second arm back in there. Now this one here is with the corner. So we kind of talked about earlier, sometimes you're giving up a lot of space. So this tight end here is probably 235 and this guy's about 170. So he's probably not going to try to run through this guy on an angle tackle. We're okay with these guys going low when the situation is right for it. You can see it pretty good from this angle here. So same type of deal. He's coming outside in on him. So he's going to try to get he's going to keep his head on the outside because he's trying to maintain his leverage. So he's going now, instead of same shoulder, same foot, it's really elbow. So we're going to throw that elbow, that forearm, and try to knock those legs out from under him. Okay, same thing here with number 2 coming across. See it from the tight. So he's got the tight end and man-to-man coverage. So he doesn't have very good leverage here. You know, this is a big guy. He wants to get him before he turns up the field. This right here could have gone either way. He could have turned this into a roll tackle. He just decided to go with the submarine tackle because the guy wasn't looking. So this is somewhat like a run-through tackle when that guy doesn't really have a chance to make a move on you, and you're giving up a lot of size to him. The submarine tackle is a good choice for the DBs. The next one is acceleration. So we're talking about your leg drive, acceleration, or torque if we're rolling. So we talked about that a little bit with the revolutions. We want to get a lot of torque with the roll tackle, but some of the key points that we'll talk about are getting our cleats in the ground. A lot of times we'll hit, and then you'll see the tops of the shoes kind of grazing along the top of the turf and spraying up a bunch of rubber. We want our cleats to be in the ground all the time. So once we've made that connection, we want to get our cleats in the grass and get our feet going. All right, hold on, Doug. I got to close the door. My kids just got home.
All good, man.
All right, so we're looking at acceleration here. Now, this is not like a 100 miles an hour drill. We're just doing an inside run. This isn't really goal line. So you'll see the tempo's a little bit slower. But what I want to point out, tackle, you can see his prepare is not very good. His base is not very good, but he gets the legs. Gets the legs going. That's something we really want to harp on all the time in practice, especially we don't do any live. So we're going to do a lot of thud. If you're going to do thud, you might as well work on the acceleration a lot. Here's another practice example here. We're coming in from the outside in here. So on this one, we're kind of working a double vice tackle, but we get the feet going. We want to pump those things. Every rep, you should be able to do this if you've got shells on at least. This is a good example from the linebacker here. Makes good contact. It's kind of a stalemate. And then he keeps the legs going and lets the cavalry come and help finish the thing so we don't have any yards after contact. You can see here we're fighting to get those feet going, drive him back, let our buddies help us out. Another good one here from 5. We're going to hit another frontal tackle here. So we make good contact right there, but then watch the feet. He gets them chopping, finishes it all the way through. It's a really, really good tackle. Good connection. There's not a lot of room between that guy as he's going to the ground. It's a great finish too. So now we're looking at a roll tackle. So we're coming from an angle. Can't really get to the angle tackle, so he goes with the roll. But we get here, first hip in the ground, second hip in the ground, and then we end up on top of him. That's what we always want to do on the roll tackle. If you tell the guys to end up on top, automatically they're going to get all the way around on the roll. Another roll here out of our corner. So the thing kind of pops loose here. He's not in a position to make any other kind of tackle other than the roll tackle, but you can see great revolution there. Gets both hips in the ground, ends up on top of the guy. All right, skip ahead a little bit here. Last part's the finish. So we're talking about securing the tackle to the ground. You can see in the picture here, we're not letting any air in between us and the ball carrier, and we're going to end in a dominant position. So here, highlight one of the defensive linemen. So you can see, it's not always going to be a perfect tackle. So he initially doesn't make good contact. He doesn't really have a good wrap, but he fights to get his hands back into a good position so that he can finish this guy to the ground. And you can see him driving his feet, trying to get this guy finished all the way to the ground. So even though he didn't have a great initial entry into the tackle, he finished the thing well. Okay, both of these guys here. Again, good contact. We got good stalemate, and now we're working. And all those three bodies go down to the ground as one. That means we got good connection. That means we're finishing the thing all the way to the dirt. Okay, looking at the corner here. So he's got a run through tackle. He doesn't quite get a good acceleration on the thing. He starts kind of hanging on to him. But what I like is he's got a good clamp, and then he ends up on top. So this is something we always talk to these guys about, end up on top. So even right here, he could just let him go, but it's just ingrained in them to end up on top. Always finish the tackle in a dominant position. Another D-line clip here. We break through on a little stunt to the backfield. Kind of got him around the neck. But what I like is you can see here on this one pretty well, we're thudding to the ground in the ground together. Don't let them any wiggle room to spin out of these tackles. All right, this is the last one. Then I'm going to switch over to a different playlist here. So another different situation. We're chasing him down to the boundary or to the field. But you can see here, he kind of ends up between a roll tackle and an angle tackle, and he goes to the ground first, our linebacker does. But you'll notice he ends up on top at the end. So it's just a matter of having that mentality. We're always going to end up on top. All right, I'm going to switch over here, talk about some of the different tackling situations that we'll find ourselves in. So the first one's a frontal tackle. So we got a few different examples here of pretty good examples. So the Niners guy up here, kind of like that first clip we saw, he's got his feet squared up. These linebackers in the hole, they're squared up. The tool we talk about is the shimmy to the double. So the shimmy was like number 2 on that first clip. He's got his feet close together, short, choppy steps. We're keeping our shoulders square. So we saw this clip earlier. This would be the frontal tackle right here. So some of these clips are repeats. Just wanted to get the basics down again. Never seen this one before. Watch the ref. Whoop. It's pretty good. So 28 here. He's in a frontal tackle situation. We'd like to get those feet together. But again, it's not always going to be perfect. Okay, we saw this one with the safety number 2 up here. He's coming down. Oh, no, this is a different one. Sorry. This is the one with the linebacker. So just highlighting the different types of tackle here. It's a frontal tackle. We're squared up to the guy. We're driving through him. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Okay, so an angle tackle. Now the ball carrier is running away from us to the sideline. We're going to drive through him. This is a good example here in the hole. So this ball carrier is running this way. The linebacker's coming from this direction. We're going to angle tackle that. And we're going to use a swoop to the single. To a single meaning we have a single leg up as we're contacting them. So we're going to swoop in this case, our left foot's up. We're going to hit him with our left shoulder, and our left knee is going to be coming with the power. Well, this is the very first clip we saw. So this would be an example of an angle tackle. Okay, so we've seen most of these at the other side, just highlighting the ball carrier is running to the outside away from our leverage. We're coming inside out. Okay. Vice tackle. I'm going to keep it moving a little bit. Vice tackle. Now the ball carrier's cutting inside. So in this case, you can see here, this player, 43, is coming from the outside in. Ball carrier's cutting up inside of him. We call that a vice tackle. I like this diagram, not diagram, but picture over here. So number 2 is coming outside in. We call him the vice. He's the vice tackle. This guy's the angle tackler. We want to force this thing straight in between us. So that way I'm hitting with my left foot, left shoulder. He's hitting with his right foot, right shoulder. That's why when going back to the tracking, it's vitally important that we not let this guy cross our nose. Keep him on your near shoulder. That way it's got to go to the vice. So we're creating this situation for him here. If he wants to try to break my leverage, I've got to redirect and cut him off, whether I'm a vice tackler or an angle tackler. So now we're coming outside in. The ball carrier's got to cut up inside of us. So angle tackle and a vice tackle is the same thing. It's just the so we saw this one earlier. Linebacker here on the line does a good job protecting his leverage. So this should be a vice tackle. He's coming outside in. Okay, another good example here now out of a DB. So you can see 37, watch him. He really fights to keep his leverage here. He realizes this guy's heading to the outside. He's got to keep his outside leverage because we've got 3 guys running to the inside. He's got to do his job and force that thing back inside. So it's a nice job on the vice tackle. It's not a great form fit. He doesn't crush the guy, but he does his job using his leverage, and we end up with a tackle for loss. Another one here, we saw this hit earlier. So we're vicing this guy. We're coming outside in with the safety. So right here, you can see we've got a vice coming right here. We can't let this thing get here. We've got to keep him on our inside shoulder with the vice guys. Okay, linebacker, we saw that one earlier. We saw this one down the field as well, so I'll keep going here. Okay, we saw this one at the start, but this is a good example to look at again. Same type of deal. The DB beats his block. He knows he's got to keep this ball on his inside shoulder, so he's going to redirect his path to make sure that doesn't cross his face. The thing that I don't like about this here is he's got his feet backwards. So we'd like that near foot to be up as we're swooping inside, because I think it's easier to push off your inside foot and break back outside if this guy decides I'm going to make it a track, I'm going to bubble and make it a track race to the outside. So that's why we want the inside foot up, because we're making it easier for this guy. If he dips inside and then cuts to the outside, we're going to have a hard time flipping our hips all the way around and getting to the outside. And this guy here, 32, did that to us several times for huge gains in this game, which really hurt us. So this was one of the better examples, but that's the reason why you got to keep him on your inside shoulder. Okay, talking about the roll tackle now. So he's running away from my leverage. Either I'm giving up too much size to him, or I can't make an angle tackle. So I've got to go down low. This is the best picture that I could find. It's not really a great one. We want the head behind when we're on a roll tackle, and we want to grab those calves, shins, and then if we have to, we'll slide down to the ankles and foot. We saw this one coming off the edge. Again, saw this one earlier, but talking about the leverage, you know, everything's not going to work perfectly, so you got to have different tools to make sure that you can make the tackle even if you're out of position initially. Now I like this one right here because it kind of turns in. He wants to angle tackle this guy. So the linebacker's coming through on the quarterback. He's running him down to the side. The quarterback kind of jukes him out, and he loses his footing a little bit, and he's got to turn it into a roll tackle. So sometimes we're going to aim for an angle tackle, and then it's going to convert into a roll tackle. But what I like on the roll tackle is, again, even though he's only got 1 foot, he's got a great clamp on it, and then you can see twist that thing up. He ends up on top of that guy. Sometimes if we get him here and we just flop on the guy, you know, he can still stay up. If we twist him, he's going down. Again, here's another one where we transition to a roll tackle. So we start up high in an angle tackle. He stops his feet, which forces him to kind of go low, but he ends up roll tackling him kind of from the waist. So even if it doesn't end up perfectly, we're still going to end up on top. You know, it's kind of awkward for himself, but we always want to have that mentality. We're going to end up on top. And the last one here, we got a run through. So like I said, say this is a stick route. Tight end catches the ball. We're going to tackle him. We're going to run right through. The tool that we use, we call it a power plant to a run through. So we're power planting with our near foot, and then we're just running right through. We're not swooping. We're not doing anything like that. Okay, so similar to the example we saw earlier, receiver's running a route. he's caught the pass. He doesn't have a chance to turn up or make a move, so we don't need to slow down at all. We don't need to worry about shimmying, swooping, anything like that. Okay, we saw that one earlier. Okay, now run-throughs can happen, on the quarterback as well. So we're looking at the defensive end here. Quarterback's got his back to him, so he doesn't really need to break down. He doesn't need to worry about him, juking him out because he's got his back to him. So we're just going to continue right through this guy. I saw that one. Okay, and then the last thing I have for you guys here is the evaluation of the tackle. So as you're looking at the tackle, when you're breaking it down and you're trying to figure out what you can do better, these are some questions that you can ask. And these are questions that the players can ask themselves too. There can be, some self-diagnosis as well. So when we're tracking, did I keep my leverage? That's the number one most important thing. If you didn't, there's a good chance that you missed the tackle, and there's a good chance that you gave up a lot of yards after catch or contact as well. When we're talking about preparing, was I in the right body position? Like we saw in the one DB on the Wheaton film there, he had his legs switched. He had his inside foot back, his right foot was up. That's going to hurt him in some cases. Did I choose the right did I run through when I should have swooped? Those are some things that you look at when you are talking about preparing. Connection, did I have the right aiming point? Should I have gone a little bit lower? Should I have gone a little bit higher? Was my clamp good? Did we go to the ground as one mass? Acceleration, did I get cleats in the ground? Did I create torque on a roll tackle? All the things we've been talking about. And then finish, did I end up on top of the guy? Did I knock him backwards? So those are some of the things that guys can look at themselves. And those are some things that people should look at when they're evaluating the film as well. So this past year, I completely copied this from Vinny DiGaetano from Fordham. So he gets all the credit for all this. But we decided to try it out this year. So this was how we evaluated each position group. So we graded them on every tackle that they were supposed to make. So whether it was a make or a miss, we tracked that. But if they missed it, we still graded them on all of the 5 fights. If they made the tackle, we graded them on 5 fights. So what you're seeing here is the tackling percentage. So this is just make, miss, yards after contact. So we've got the total, and then we've got the average there. And then you've got the grades for each of the 5 fights. So track, prepare, connect, accelerate, finish. And then the final score is 3.5. So 3.5 out of 5, that's a pretty good score. And then we had one of our GAs create a graph so we could kind of see where the dipping point was. So you can kind of see right here the connection for these guys was where things kind of dipped off. They did pretty good with the track and the prepare and started to get better with the other 2, but the connection was kind of the issue. So moving on to the linebackers, you can see big time the major dipping point was the acceleration. So we're not getting our cleats in the ground, or we're not finishing the roll tackle with great torque, getting our hips in the ground. So we were able to take this information. Here's the DB's chart as well. And obviously you're going to have different standards for each position group. Defensive backs, it's a lot harder to track than it is for a defensive tackle, for instance. So you have to keep that in mind when you're kind of setting your standard. But we are going to look at these graphs and see what positions need what work. So we've kind of gotten away from the tackling circuit where we're just going to do an angle tackle and a run and gather and a roll or whatever. If we're finding that our guys are tracking really well, we're going to kind of pull back from that. We're going to put more into, say, acceleration type drills or connection type drills. We're going to find the areas where we're lacking and try to get those up to our strengths. So this would be our team chart. So you can see this is the first year that I'd ever done this too. So, I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was a good score. So I'll have to kind of collect a little bit more data to know what's really good. But I can tell you for sure that a 24% acceleration percentage is not good, or a 37% connection is not good. So, you can tell we've got a lot of work to do, but this gives you more of an idea of what exactly do we need to work on, and we can talk to the guys about we can talk to them about different specific coaching points rather than just run your feet. We say get cleats in the ground, give them a visual of what you want them to do, get 2 hips in the ground, get on top, end up on top of that guy on the roll tackle, give them visual, tangible things they can grab onto and use as they're trying to improve on these skills that you're teaching them. Then another thing that we would update weekly, and you can make this, obviously this is pretty Spartan here. You can make it a lot more pretty and a lot more presentable, but basically what we do here is, this was the North Central game, the attempted tackles per player, and then the missed tackles per player. And then we would give them a percentage and then track the season total over here. And this is something that we'd put up on the board at our defensive meetings, the very first defensive meeting of the week, and kind of make it like a competition thing. So you can get the best score, so you can have the lowest yards after contact and make it competitive. I think that's a really important thing. And it helps the guys buy into what you're teaching them too. So, and you'll notice, you look over here, attempted tackles, there's really not that many. So when I first started looking into this, I said, there's no way we can do this. We're not going to track 75 plays, and that's going to take forever. But when you talk about incomplete passes, plays that maybe a guy tripped and fell, maybe a guy ran out of bounds, we don't count any of those plays. So we're only counting plays where the tackle was there to be made, and we'll grade those. So we're not taking into consideration every single snap. So it ends up being between probably 30 and 40 plays that our guy would grade. So it's a little less daunting than originally I thought. This would be the last thing that we would show the guys. So we would show them our team percentage per game. So you can see this is our track score, and it kind of goes up and down. Ideally, you want this thing to be sort of on a curve like that. And acceleration kind of was, we were getting better, and then we started getting a little worse, kind of here. And part of that's opponent too. I mean, let's be honest, when you're playing better teams, it's going to be harder to make great tackles because they're superior athletes. So that's part of it too. But this just gives our guys a visual of what we're talking to them about, because sometimes you throw up a whole bunch of numbers up there and it doesn't mean a whole lot to them and they're not really connecting with it. But we try to give them visuals so that way they can see the improvement and they can see what we're talking about. So I kind of just went over this, but what to look for, find the limiting factor. So for my linebacker group, the limiting factor is our acceleration. We were not good at that for whatever reason. We stopped our feet on contact. And we had a hard time finishing tackles with knockback. So we were going to drill those skills because they needed the most attention. We were going to find ways to improve on that to get it up to par with the rest of our tackling skills. The other thing that we'll look for is the tackling situations. If I'm a free safety, I don't really need to work engaged tackle a lot because I'm not going to be in that situation. Same thing with defensive linemen. They don't have to work as many drills in space because they're not going to be in that situation a lot. So I put it up to each position coach to make sure that when we were drilling tackling that they were doing stuff that was relevant to their position group. And then lastly, I've got a few examples of some drills that we did as a linebacker group. And I believe I've got at least one drill for each skill just to give you an idea of some of the different things that we were doing. So the first one's a track drill, and most of these are from the USA football system too. I got a lot of them from there. So that's where a lot of these came from. But we've got a cone right here on the sideline. You can't see it, but I'll call out 1 or 2, and whoever gets their number called, they're going to run around the cone, and then they're going to work to get back into their leverage. So that way we're getting that vice on the guy. So here I called 2. So you can see the 2 run around. The other linebacker, he's a little confused here. He starts going around the cone, but the other guy should just go straight to the ball carrier. So here we get a little late start here, but you can see we're going to have that running back. He can go wherever he wants. So we've got to adjust our path, and we want to end up just like this. Inside shoulder. We've got that vice going. Same deal here. This is a pretty good example. So this linebacker, he didn't get his number called. He's just going to close distance. He's going to swoop in with his near foot, near shoulder, and he's going to protect his leverage. we talk to these guys all the time about not letting the ball cross their nose like I talked about. So when these guys start to get competitive, the guy that is at running back will really try to, jump cut or get around to the outside, and that makes it a much better drill when they do try to do that, because it makes it more realistic and makes them work really hard to keep their leverage. And then this is another good drill here. You see on the contact, we can work getting our feet going, and it's kind of a low impact type drill. Okay, this is one we use to kind of teach different body positions. So this would be a prepare drill. So what we're going to do here is this guy's going to drop on a 45 to the numbers. He's going to drop on a 45 to the numbers. He's going to open up and drop straight back to the numbers. Then once I give the command, they're going to close on me, and I'm going to move just a little bit from side to side. The person in the middle, 37 right here, is going to work his shimmy technique because he's in a frontal tackle situation. So he's going to end up in a shimmy. And then the two outside players are going to swoop to the single. So they're coming in like they're on a vice tackle. They're going to work. He should have his right leg up. He should have his left leg up when they finish. And I ask these guys to really exaggerate it when they get up to me so that I can see that they're in the proper footwork. So we all drop out. I'll move just a little bit, and I want to see that near foot up. So 57 does a good job here. He's exaggerating it, that he's got his near foot up. That's what I want to see. It's not that natural for these guys to come in with their near foot. A lot of guys want to turn their shoulders in towards the ball carrier. I don't know why, just because maybe they think they're caging them in that way, but it's not natural to come in with your inside foot up. So it takes a lot of practice to get the guys to get into that. So you can see here again, the middle guy should be working to get into a frontal tackle. He's getting into a shimmy. And the good thing about this drill is if these guys don't shimmy, if they're out of control, they step on my feet and I get mad at them. So then they'll learn how to get themselves under control. And this one's a good one too. You can see, I mean, we got 20 linebackers there. We get 3 guys going at the same time. It helps get guys more involved. So we call this the engage drill. So this works the prepare, the connect, the acceleration. We're going to start engage with the lineman. We're going to have our hands inside his breastplate. We're going to tell these guys to go one way or the other. So the blocker's just going to work one way. We tell the back to run right for the hip of his offensive lineman. So he's coming right as tight as possible. And you'll see sometimes they don't get as tight as I want. But the idea is we want this guy to get really tight so that way we can make an engaged tackle with one shoulder, one arm, like we would in a game. So we're going to lock that guy out, get to our gap, and then the blocker is told to hang on to that guy, and we're making a tackle while he's hanging on to us. So once we make this initial contact, then we're going to try to get that second arm off and get that involved in the tackle too and drive our feet. So again, here you can see we're getting a lot of guys involved at the same time. We got 9 guys running through the drill at the same time. They just rotate through, but we're getting them like 34 here. He's not doing a good job. He's not close enough to make this realistic. There's too much space there. Where this guy in the middle, he's doing a good job. He runs right to the hip of the blocker. So that way we can make a good engaged tackle. So again, here, this is what happens if your blocker doesn't move. The blocker doesn't move, and we don't have an engaged tackle anymore. So you've got to make sure the blockers stay on them, hold them if you want to, and make the runners run straight downhill. So that way they can get in there. Now this one we call the shed drill. So this one's a little bit different, working the same type of skills. We're working on getting our body position into the right posture. We're working on the connection with the clamp, and then we're working the acceleration, running our feet. But this time we're gonna shed off. So you can see here the blockers are gonna still work a little bit to the side, but we're gonna extend that guy away from our body, and then we're gonna shed off, connect, and then run our feet. So whereas on the last one we're telling the blocker hang on to that guy, on this one we're telling him just step with him, but you can kind of let him go. We're working on our punch, extension, release, connection, all of it at once. That was a pretty good one right there in the middle. But this is good body position. We're hitting low, near foot's up, which is the right foot. We got a good clamp, good acceleration there. Okay, this is a variation of the drill that we'll do. We call it trail. So this time our gap is still here. So we've got to punch and we've got to work our way around to the opposite gap. So we've got a cross face on this guy. So this would be a situation where, say, this is a linebacker. He's in a 40. Say the center's right here, and we've got a 3 technique right here, and we're responsible for a gap. So say they're working a scoop or whatever, and this guy's trying to work down. We've still got to get down into our gap. So we're trying to give them a realistic game scenario. It's not always going to be we get to come downhill, outside in on our gap, punch, and just stay right in there. Sometimes we got to move with the gap. So I'll give them a point. So the guy in the middle does a pretty good job here. He's punching, getting his hat back to his gap, which is what we have to do. And then same deal. Connection, this guy's doing a good job over here. Connection, run your feet, finish the tackle. So just trying to make things a little bit more realistic. You're not always going to be able to come downhill on your gap. Sometimes you got to work laterally. You got to address the blocker on your way to your gap. And we're just trying to get them in different situations that they might face in a real game. Okay, again, these are ones I stole from USA Football. So I said earlier, we really struggle with acceleration as a linebacking group. So this is one of the acceleration drills from there. So we're going to shuffle, and then we're going to hit this bag with our hands on the ground, and then we're going to run our feet. If you don't run your feet, the bag doesn't move. If you don't get low enough in the proper body position, you can't push the bag. So we just a little swoop over, just a little shuffle to kind of get them to change their feet. They get their eyes. You know, this is the body position that you're going to be in on a tackle. It's a little bit exaggerated. You're not going to be down this low, but you're going to be hitting with your pads. Your helmet's going to be off to the side. And then the key part here on this drill is we got to get our feet in the ground to get it going. And you'll be able to tell the guys that don't get behind the bag enough, they'll get on top of the bag and they'll kind of stumble over the top of the bag. But again, if you don't run your feet, you're not going to move the bag. So we're really just trying to overemphasize that part of the tackle. It's not a super realistic drill, but we're trying to focus on one skill and make that better. So this is kind of a cousin of that drill. We're going to start with our hands on the end of an agile bag. I wish I had this one from the side, but we're going to start with our hands on the end of the agile bag. We're going to push it. This ball carrier here is just going to walk towards us. Once he gets close, we're going to shimmy to a double, and then we're going to connect with this guy. So they're going to push the bag, they're going to shimmy across the bag, and then they're going to connect. So we're looking at the right body position and then the acceleration. So this guy does a pretty good job here. Getting the feet going, get the feet nice and wide as we're coming to the double. And then from here, we're just talking about the connection. We're talking about the acceleration and all those things. It's a good example here in the middle. Watch this guy. This is good claws up right here. So he's got great position. He shot his hips through, and then he's going to run his feet. So we're kind of putting this into a really small environment, so that way we don't have to hit really hard. We don't have to exhaust these guys. It's in a really small situation, small area. We can get a lot of reps done and work on some of the skills that we need to work on. Okay, so now this guy over here, he doesn't do a good job with the prepare. He just comes in, his shoulders are too high. He kind of connects with this guy way up high. Whereas the guy in the middle, you can see, I mean, he's big. This guy's 6'4" right here in the middle. But you can see a dip of his pad level. He dips, and now he's hitting on the rise. So even though he's like 6 inches taller than that guy, he's still getting underneath his pads. Okay, this is one of the clips just to show you what this looks like in a game. So we do a drill we call the spin drill. So sometimes we get the running back, we've got him collisioned right here, and then he's spinning out. We've got to try to work to get our hips around or roll that guy up. So this is something that we will actually drill in practice. So this works our connection, our acceleration to get the feet going, and our finish. So we've got these guys basically like almost helmet to helmet. So there's very little collision in this drill. It's very low contact. The ball carrier can pick one side or the other. He's going to go either left to the right or to the left. And the defender's goal is to keep him from crossing the line. So he's going to collision him. And then once the running back gets collisioned, he's going to try to spin off. So you can see here, we've got a nice tight clamp. There's no room for that guy to spin. That's what we're looking for on this drill. So the running backs aren't going a million miles an hour. This took us a little practice, because when I told them, all right, running backs, you're trying to cross the line, they just like bowl the guy over and we wouldn't get anything out of it. So we slowed the running back down a little bit so that way we can get good practice with the spin. But again, with the finish, like you can see here, he doesn't have any kind of wrap with his right arm. But once the spin comes, he repositions it. He repositions that arm. We're talking about trying to end the play in a dominant position. Sometimes you have to reposition your hands while you're working your feet to get back around with your hips. So again, it's just a good connection, acceleration, finish drill. It mostly looks like this. It's kind of ugly reps, but it's good practice, because in real life, you're going to hit running backs. They're going to try to spin off you. They're going to try to stiff arm you, do different things like that. So if we can put them in positions to practice, it will help them. Good connection. We're repositioning our hands as we go, getting a different fit on that guy. We're always battling to win each of these 5 fights. So that gives you a look at what we're doing tackling wise. Like I said, big props goes to the USA football guys, Andy Ryland and Richie Gray and Vinny DiGaetano and all those guys, because a lot of this stuff is straight from them. And I got a lot out of it, and we got a lot out of it this year. And I think we improved, and gives us something to build on going forward. But obviously we don't have any spring practice going on, so you can kind of ignore that. But my contact info is down there if anybody wants to get in touch with me or wants this presentation or anything like that. My email's there, my Twitter, and my cell phone. So if you guys want to connect, I'd love to chat. Like I said, I learned everything that I know from somebody else. So I'm by no means a guru, but if you guys want to connect, or you want to talk ball, or you want something that I have, I'd be more than willing to share. So.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Coach Caserta. I came up with a few questions as you were kind of going through everything. For you guys specifically, what do you count as a missed tackle? Is that being in position and not finishing it? Is that, you got a hand on him or a finger on him? What's your criteria for a missed tackle?
So if we don't get the guy to the ground, that'd be a missed tackle for us. So it's kind of a subjective thing. So like you said, if you get a hand on him, where's the line between should he have tackled him or not? What we do is we have one guy. It's one of our defensive coaches. He's our tackling guru, and he makes the call. So it's completely up to him. I don't have any say in it. And that way we have one. If it's subjective, at least it's consistent. It's one guy's opinion. And, we'll tell guys, if you disagree with your missed tackle, you come in and we'll look at it. We'll sit down and we'll regrade it if we need to. We're not perfect with the grading system, but we'll count it as a missed tackle if he doesn't get him to the ground. And whether he should have, quote unquote, made the tackle or not, that's up to the coach's discretion.
Yeah, I like that, having one guy in charge of that, though. I think it heads off some of the questions. So the one type of tackle that I don't really see in the whole thing, and it's such a small percentage of football tackles as a whole, is, a breakaway runner and you're chasing them down from behind. Do you have anything you tell your guys in that type of situation where you're chasing that guy down from behind?
Our big thing about that is if we can catch up to a guy from behind, we want to work a tomahawk on the ball. And that's part of we have kind of a takeaway system too. That's our main focus on that one. And I'm of the mind where if the guy's breaking loose and he's already gained a big chunk of yards, I'm willing to risk a missed tackle to get the ball back. So that's kind of a philosophy thing. But when we're coming from behind, if you can catch up to him, we're going to try to punch the ball out. If you can't, and you have to dive for his ankles. One thing that I've heard from the rugby guys was if the ball carrier is running away from you, you should try to aim for his far leg if you're diving. So, a lot of times guys kind of swat at the near ankle and try to make him click his heels together as he's running. But what we try to tell him is if you dive, then try to aim for the far leg. So if you do miss the front leg that's nearest to you, you still have a chance to knock that guy off his stride, maybe push him out of bounds or something like that.
That's good. I hadn't heard that before. So when you're charting and grading guys, are you only grading the guys that are making the tackle, or are you grading leverage and angle stuff from everyone in the picture? Is it just guys that are making the tackle really that you're most concerned about?
Yeah, it's just the primary tackler. That's it.
Okay.
So the guy that was in position to make the tackle, that's the only one that gets graded. So even if he misses the tackle and somebody else ends up making the tackle, we don't even grade the second guy. We only grade the one guy. Part of it is because of time. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you'll get 3, even 4 guys that should have made the tackle. So we just take that initial tackler, and because we figure if we can fix whatever went wrong with that initial guy, then we don't have to worry about the second and third guy.
Mm-hmm.
So for simplicity's sake, we'll just grade that first guy.
Gotcha. All right. Really appreciate your time, Coach Caserta. Thanks for talking some ball with us, man.
Absolutely.